Welcome back, everyone, to True Crime Desk. I'm Richard. And today I'm going to go over the Delphi case and the Lakin Riley case. Now, both of those have just finished. They come to their conclusions and verdicts and all that stuff. So I thought it's a good time to go over them both. We can discuss what we think about the cases and whether we believe we got justice for both of them. So I'll do a quick overview of both cases, and then we'll discuss it. Now, before I get started, I just want to say I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. It's like December 3rd today as I'm recording this. So I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, and Black Friday was successful. I went out myself. It was actually fun to do that. So I hope everybody is safe and sound and everybody had fun. So with that being said, let's get into the case. All right, so the first case I'm going to go over is the Delphi case. Now they call it that because it was in Delphi, Indiana. And like I said, this case just concluded as well. So let's get into it. Now, on February 13, 2017, in Delphi, Indiana, a day that would never be forgotten for those that live in that area, that's for sure. Unfortunately, the two victims in this case were Abigail Abby Williams, and she went by Abby, and Libby German. So we have Abigail and Libby. Now, Abby Williams, she was born on August 27, 2003, and she lived in Delphi, Indiana, and she was only 13 years old at the time of her death. Now, Abby was the kind of kid you would instantly love. She was vibrant, she loved outdoor activities, and she always had a smile that would light up her room. Now, you hear that a lot from everybody, but in her case, I definitely believe it. Now, her family described her as a kind-hearted, always ready to help others and deeply connected to her community. And I don't doubt that for 1 minute. Now, as you're going to see, these two young ladies had their whole lives ahead of them until they ran into some scumbag. But let's talk about Libby now. Now, Libby German, she was born on July 14, 2003, and she also lived in Delphi, Indiana, obviously. And she was 14 years old when all this happened. Now, Libby was tech savvy. She was a tech savvy teenager, and she was known for her love of photography and clever, witty, and she had a clever and witty personality. So she was a goofball. So she was also the kind of kid who always had her phone. She had it ready to capture moments, and as you're going to see, it was very critical that she had her phone on her that day. Now, as you can tell from that brief introduction, these were just two young ladies that had just started. They hadn't even begun to live yet, and they're just minding their own business, as you'll see. But they were just two sweet little girls. So this is a really sad case. So let's get on to the day of the crime. Now, as I said earlier, all this stuff happened on February 13, 2017. And for what everybody can remember, they said it was just a normal winter day in Delphi. Now, the girls were out for a hiking adventure on the Monon High Bridge Trail. Now, that's a walking path that winds through the scenic Delphi Community Park. And at around 1 p.m., the girls were dropped off at the trail by Libby's older sister. At 2:07 p.m., Libby uploaded a Snapchat photo of Abby walking on the bridge. The girls would never return home. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of times when we see cases, or there's a lot of YouTube videos out there as well, where they'll show photos that are just really basic photos, but because you know what happened or someone disappeared, they become kind of spooky. And this is one of them. When you see her standing on the bridge and she's walking, there's a picture of her walking on that bridge. It really becomes spooky. I mean, it's like I said, it's just a normal picture of a girl walking on the bridge, but once you kind of know the situation and all the things that happened surrounding it, it becomes kind of spooky. Now, when the girls didn't return home, everybody started to panic, which makes perfect sense. So their families immediately contacted law enforcement. Now, the Delphi Police Department, the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, and the Indiana State Police launched an intense investigation. Now, the most crucial piece of evidence came from Libby's phone, as we discussed earlier. So I'll go ahead and put that in here right now, and we'll check it out, and then we'll talk about it. Now, as you can see by that video there, it's kind of short and it just keeps looping. But once you kind of know the scenario surrounding it, it becomes kind of spooky. Now, obviously, as before Libby's death, she managed to capture an audio recording, as you can see there, in the video of the man walking on the bridge. Now, she filmed that as she was walking across the bridge, and she kind of was getting creeped out. So she grabbed her phone and started recording, and that's what you see right there. And that became a crucial piece of this investigation, that's for sure. Now, for 4 years, this case remained unsolved, and some people didn't think it would ever be solved, but that audio clip of the suspect saying "guys down the hill" became a chilling reminder as the unsolved case. Like I said, I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries a lot as a kid, and they'd have the creepy music and stuff, and it definitely would fit there. It's very, very creepy. Now, their initial investigation started in February 2017, of course, but it wasn't until July 2022 that Richard Allen was arrested. Now, Richard Allen was a local CVS pharmacist, and he was employed in Delphi, Indiana. And he was born on September 7th, 1969, and he lived in Delphi, as I said. So he's just a couple years younger than me. That's really weird to think that this guy was living in the community, but they had that idea that whoever did this was part of that community and probably was still there. Now, like I said, this guy worked at a CVS, a pharmacist. And my son used to work at CVS. He used to be a store manager there, and he used to run his own store, and they have the pharmacy in the back. I'm sure you guys are familiar with CVS. I'm explaining the pharmacy and the way it works, but you have basically everybody that lives in that area, they're going to go there, and you're going to know the people that work back there. So there's no doubt that he knew what was going on. There was actually I don't know if I'll be able to find that, but if I can, I'll put it in there. But there's a famous picture of him standing there, and in the background there was the poster on the wall of the suspect. And that, once again, that's really creepy. Now, finally, on October 28, 2022, Richard Allen was formally charged with 2 counts of M in the death of Abby Williams and Libby German. Now, the trial began on October 26, 2023, so not that long ago, just over a year ago. And the trial began in Carroll County, Indiana. Now, the prosecution presented a mountain of evidence. They had all kinds of evidence, including forensic DNA evidence. They had cell phone records, witness testimony, and all kinds of crucial audio and video evidence, and captured by Libby, of course. So they had tons and tons of evidence on this guy. It was crazy how much they had. Now, the prosecution, they painted a chilling picture of a premeditated and cold and calculated M. They argued that Richard Allen had deliberately targeted the girls, stalking them on the Monon High Bridge trail before committing a horrible crime. Now, obviously he was just stalking them. That's where Libby, she saw him, kind of creeped out. She got creeped out rightly, so she took that video. Thank God she did, right? Now, as defense typically does, they attempted to challenge all the forensic evidence and raise reasonable doubt about Allen's involvement. Of course, that's their job. But after weeks of intense testimony and evidence presented to the jury, they began their deliberations. And it didn't take very long. On November 11, 2024, which was just last month, after about 19 hours, the jury found Richard Allen guilty of both Emming charges. And like I said, that was just last month. It wasn't even a month ago, actually. And so that's why I wanted to do this case, because after 4 years, it finally was finished. Now, the judge, he left a gag order restricting involved parties from speaking on this case because Allen hasn't been sentenced yet. And he's scheduled to be sentenced on December 20th of this year, so just a few weeks from now. Now, he could be sentenced up to 120 years in prison. So we'll have to see what happens on that. That's pretty much where we are until he gets sentenced. But there's a couple of things I want to mention. That as far as the forensic evidence and some of the stuff they had, I know one of the things is that they had a full spent round of ammunition they found near the girls. Now, basically, if you know what that is a round of ammunition is basically you have that the outer part, which is called the case, not a casing. It's called a case. And then you have the projectile, which is the bullet on top. And that's a full round. Of course, you have the propellant inside and all that stuff. But they found that on the ground. So what they're surmising it happened is that when he saw the girls, he had the firearm with him, and in order to intimidate them, they're assuming that he racked the slide, which would eject one of the rounds onto the ground. And so they found that, and they matched it to a gun that he had. And he also admitted that he was at that bridge at the same day, at the same time, around that same time. And he also admitted it many times in jail that he actually did it. So he did that many times. That's a couple things I didn't put in there. And one of the other things is that the girls were found with sticks on their bodies, all in these cross positions and stuff. And so they were saying that it was a cult and all kinds of that BS, which I don't believe any of that. So that's some of the stuff that other things that they found. And I didn't want to go into too much of what happened to the girls. Their lives were taken, and that's all we need to do. That's bad enough. We don't want to get into those gruesome details. But anyway, that's where we're at this point. So what do you guys think? Do you think he's guilty? Do you think that they got the right person? And do you think he's going to get that whole 120 years? I think he will. So that's where we're at this point in this case until he gets sentenced. So it's a pretty sad case. I'm just glad they finally solved it. Took 4 years, and it probably seemed like forever for the family. But at least they got it done, and justice was served in this case. So let's move on to the next case. All right, now the next case we're going to go over, it just finished as well, is the Lakin Riley case. Now, there's a lot of political stuff involved in this case as far as this person was illegal and all that other stuff, where they should have been here. And I'm not getting into any of that. That's not what this channel is about. I'm just going to give you the facts that I have, tell you the story. And I'll leave that up to you guys, whether you're against it, for it, or whatever, because I'm not going to talk about that part. I won't mention that he is illegal, obviously, but that's as far as that's going to go. Now, this case happened on February 22nd, 2024 in Athens, Georgia. But before we go any further, let's talk about Lakin. Now, Lakin Hope Riley, she was born on January 10, 2002 in Marietta, Georgia, and her father's name was Jason Riley, and her mother was Allison Phillips. Now, she has 3 siblings, and in 2020, she graduated from River Ridge High School in Woodstock, Georgia, where she was a member of the cross-country team. So that's pretty cool. My brother-in-law did that, where they run long distances. Now, as you're going to see, obviously, in both these cases, if you're not familiar, these were 3 young women. Now, Riley was a little bit older than the other ones, but they're all 3 young women that didn't even get a chance to live their lives because they ran across these scumbags. It just seems like there's too many of these guys out there nowadays. You just eradicate them from the earth. But I don't know. Maybe that's a little harsh, but that's just the way I look at it. Now, Lakin, she was really young as well. She was only 22 years old at the time of her death. Now, she was a nursing student at Augusta University in Athens, Georgia, and she had previously attended the University of Georgia as an undergraduate. Now, she was an active member of the Alpha Chi Omega sorority. Now, Lakin's friends had described her as a bright, ambitious young woman with dreams of becoming a nurse. Obviously, that's why she was in nursing school. And her friends described her as a compassionate, driven, and full life. Now, from all the pictures I've seen of her, I don't doubt that whatsoever. They said she was a nursing student with a heart of gold, and that she was the kind of person that lit up the room whenever she walked in. Now, you hear that a lot, but in her case, I believe it's true. You hear it because it's probably true for a lot of these people. It seems like all the beautiful people, they seem to have all these bad things happen to them. I just don't get it. Now, February 22nd, 2024, it was just an ordinary Thursday from what everybody said. Now, Lakin, she was on campus. She decided to go for a run, which she's done countless times before. This was a trail she was familiar with. Now, it was a routine that she had performed many, many times to stay in shape. She was really, her fitness is very important to her. But nobody could have predicted what would happen on that day. Now, as you can see from that video up there, that it's just a normal day. She just got out of the house and went running, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. And there was cameras everywhere, but unfortunately, when she went down that trail, there was no cameras in that area. But nothing looked out of the ordinary. Now, when Lakin didn't return home after a run, everybody started getting worried. And I know one of her friends had tried to get a hold of her, and when she would ping her phone, it was in the woods and on the trail. And so then she went to the store and came back and everything. And when she did it again, it was in the same spot. She did it a few times, and that's really strange. That's when they decided to go out and look for her, because her phone hadn't moved in a while and it was in the same spot. And that definitely didn't look good. Now, campus and local law enforcement immediately launched a search, with Athens Clark County Police Department taking the lead. The University of Georgia campus was put on high alert, and eventually the campus became a crime scene. Now, the investigation would soon focus on Jose Antonio Ibarra. Now, he was a Venezuelan national, but they focused on this guy pretty quick. Now, eventually, Jose Ibarra, he was arrested and charged with Lakin Riley's M. Now, his charges would include M, false imprisonment, kidnapping with bodily injury, aggravated assault with intent to R, and tampering with evidence. Now, a little bit about him that I'll tell you is that he was 26 years old. He was an undocumented migrant from Venezuela. Now, his background would slowly unfold during the trial and would reveal a pattern of dangerous behavior that would shock everybody. So he was not a good guy, not at all. Now, the reason I say that's all I'm going to give you is because he's not worthy of more of my time or more of your time. So that's all you're going to get. Like I said, I'm not going to get into why he was here or shouldn't be here, all that illegal stuff, and I'm not getting into any of that. And I'm not going into any more of his background because he doesn't deserve it. So that's all I'm going to talk about him as far as that goes. The prosecutor, he was very methodical. He went through all the charges, and they had 10 different charges, and each one of them were more brutal than the next. It was a terrible crime. They had, DNA, they had crime scene photos, they had video, they had everything on this guy. So it's a good thing that he was dumb because he left a lot of evidence around and they were on top of him immediately. Now, this trial didn't take very long. It was only 4 days because it was a bench trial. So it's where the judge does everything. There's no jury. So on November 20th, 2024, Jose Antonio Ibarra, he was found guilty. And Judge Patrick Haggard, he found Ibarra guilty on 10 counts. And he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. Now, I know there was a lot of people that are complaining that he should have got the death penalty. And then from everything I know that the prosecutor or the DA didn't even, they said from the beginning they weren't going to go after that. And I'm not sure why, even though they could have. And there's a lot of people, I've heard a lot that they want him to be resentenced, and I don't know whether that can be done or not, and whether the family was on board or not. But I know where I stand on it. I know the way I would feel. But as of now, he has life without possibility of parole. So let me know what you think. You think he should have got the death penalty? You think that Allen's going to get 100 plus 20 years, 120 years? Let me know what you think. I personally think he should have got the death penalty. I think they both should get the death penalty. That's just me. That's the way I feel in all these cases. I have zero tolerance for that. They're just going to waste time and everybody's money while they're sitting in jail, supposedly suffering. They won't be suffering. They don't have a conscience. They don't care. But anyway, that's just me. I don't want to get on this big rant, but just let me know what you think. I definitely want to know. And we'll move on from there. So that's going to do it. So if you got something out of the video and, you haven't subscribed, please do. Hit that thumbs up, all that cool stuff. I appreciate it. And so like I said, I'm just glad these ones are over so the families can move forward. So that's going to do it. So until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember to always mind your surroundings. Bye.